The Dr. Jane Ruby Show is made possible by the generous support of Carlos Cortez Wealth Management. America first, family-minded, Christ-centered. Cortez Wealth Management is a great choice to protect your future. Call today, 813-448-3446.
New bioweapons in pill form are rushed out. An update on mystery child hepatitis now linked to adenovirus. And Dr. Jane tears up the Reawaken America tour. On today's Dr. Jane Ruby Show, I'll revisit the COVID-19 perpetual hamster wheel of new drugs they're designed to keep you frightened and compliant. Now, with pills, one pill after another coming out. And I'll show you just how these companies are able to rush them through and out on an emergency basis for a long gone flu with a 100% recovery rate. And I've got an update on the mystery severe hepatitis that's hitting children, but it's also hitting adults. It's no longer a coincidence, according to many world experts. And I'll close the show with a special review of the Reawaken America tour this past weekend in South Carolina. This is the Dr. Jane Ruby Show, and you're about to enter a whole lot of truth in medicine. Welcome back to another edition of the Dr. Jane Ruby Show. I'm kind of pumped up because I just came back from Clay Clark's Reawaken America tour, and it was a sellout event with over 3,000 or 4,000 people. It was just incredible. We were at the South Carolina Opry in Myrtle Beach, and it just met so many incredible patriots. I spoke there, and if you stick with me for the full show, I will go over some of the events, I'll talk about it, and I'll share some clips with you of my presentation. But first, I want to talk about these new bioweapons that are coming down the pipe. You know, there's a whole new pattern of emergency use authorization. These companies have figured out that all they have to do is get an early stop in their trials. They don't have to finish their protocols. That saves them literally hundreds of millions of dollars, and it saves them a lot of time, which means they can start making money ahead of time. And look, we've always known that the biggest customer for any pharmaceutical company, big or small, is the United States government. But this is taken to a whole new level. These companies have preferential treatment. They're being defended by the government, by the DOD. They're being funded. These drugs, most of the time, are being developed with U.S. taxpayer money. And then, after they're developed enough, they get handed over to these companies. They run a sham, randomized, placebo-controlled trial for a short amount of time, probably a few weeks, 30, 40 patients, totally out of sync with the processes of drug development that I've talked about many times. And I will continue to talk about it because I think it's important for the American public to understand the deviations from the FDA's own guidance documents, which are their regulations, and a lot of other federal regulations and laws. So I wanted to share with you, let's start with a particular drug you're going to hear more and more about, called sabizabulin. And let's start with this first photograph of sabizabulin. Is a drug that is literally a anti-cancer drug. It's still actually in testing. It's had some preliminary success, if you will, in oncology. And they claim that they inadvertently discovered an antiviral mechanism, secondary mechanism of action. So they started to test it, and lo and behold, it was so successful, those are their words, that, and watch this carefully, an independent data monitoring committee advised them heavily to stop the trial because it was so wonderful and so effective Stop the randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind trial. Remember something, when you're running an RCT for this is a novel, new entity. When you're running a trial for something like that, the minimum number of weeks for these trials are either 12 weeks or 24 weeks. And that's not going to give you long-term safety. It's barely going to give you enough data to compare to placebo to be able to demonstrate a reasonable expectation to the FDA that you have some efficacy of your entity. And it should give you early safety signals, right? But again, all through the drug development process, you should be reporting back to the FDA with safety signals from your animal studies, through your phase 1 human, which is just a few people, your phase 2, which is many more people, should be in the thousands. And your phase 3, your phase 2B and 3A studies are tens of thousands of patients, usually many multi-centers across the US, probably a few centers outside of the US. And that's the way it should go. And again, that's not going to give you any kind of long-term safety issue. So let's take a closer look at sabizabulin, which is going to be rushed out. And your doctors, those of you who are still staying with the murderers who told you to get the jab, whether you did or not, those same doctors are probably going to be pushing Pfizer's Paxlovid, which is failing all over the place, to the point where the CEO, Albert Bourla, is committing off-label promotion, a federal offense, by telling people to take multiple rounds of it. Even the FDA, which is owned by Pfizer, pretty much, is saying, whoa, that's not in our guidelines. Okay, and Merck's molnupiravir, these are very dangerous pills, and they were developed very quickly. They were allowed to stop early under the guise of they were so successful. Like 95% efficacy, remember that? With the shots? So just to give you a quick overview of sabizabulin, it's an oral agent, it's an anti-cancer drug, and it's theoretical. Remember, these mechanisms of action, nobody can really see something at a receptor site. You might see activity, lower activity, higher, but you're not specifically seeing a molecule dock into a receptor. Don't ever let anybody tell you that. Everything is theoretical in pharma. So theoretically, this drug targets microtubules, right? And they claim that the coronavirus uses your cells' microtubules to travel in, to get in. That's theoretical. And there's never been a coronavirus, if it's a SARS-CoV-2 virus, that's ever been isolated in its whole and pure form from an ill person. So we've got layer of lie upon lie upon lie. But if you want to go with the theory / lie, sabizabulin targets the cytoskeleton to cross-link and inhibit microtubule assembly. Now, call me crazy, but if we have microtubules in our cell membranes that are sort of supposedly tunnels into our cells, that we probably need them for a reason, for a natural reason. And we're going to interfere with the cytoskeleton. Cyto is cell, skeleton, the structure, right? The skeleton structure, nothing to do with your bones, of these cells, the scaffolding, the structural. And we're going to interfere with that, right? Because that's what they think is going to block the coronavirus from traveling down into your cell and using your own DNA to replicate itself and make you sicker. Theory, 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 theory. Okay? But these trials were stopped early. And by the way, that in 2012 they've got some data here on rats and dog toxicity, but they don't go through human trials in phase 1 to do the due diligence on drug interactions, the pharmacokinetics. Remember, pharmacokinetics, where does the drug go in the body? Where does it concentrate? How is it metabolized? How much is absorbed? What's the half-life? The time it takes your body to reduce the amount you took to half of that amount. That's called the half-life. That gives us an idea of how long the drug stays in your body, how long it stays active. Those are very important parameters. But if you don't do that in humans, you don't have a safety foundation. Let's take a look at the picture FDA Sabiza 1. Headline, sabizabulin cuts COVID-19 death. Trials stop due to early efficacy. But look at the bottom. A month later, the company stock rises as FDA agrees the data's enough to file the EUA. Really? Really? Because FDA, you're committing crimes because your own guidance documents require a certain type of data from randomized placebo-controlled trials and a certain duration. And you're not going to hide behind, well, it's a guidance document for industry, because you've held the industry to those guidance documents for as long as I can remember, over 20 years. Let's look at the next picture. I just want to give you an idea. I'm switching gears here to Paxlovid. Paxlovid fails. Look at this headline. Pfizer's COVID drug fails to show benefit as preventive therapy. Because these trials have never gone through their rigors. So really nobody knows what their true mechanisms of action, what their true effects are on any cold or flu. These guys they're making a ton of money on a foregone failed premise that you can come up with a universal treatment or preventative treatment or traditional vaccine for coronavirus, which are all the rhinoviruses, the cold viruses, the flu viruses that mutate every year or two. Picture 3, or 4 rather. Again, Pfizer says COVID treatment Paxlovid fails to prevent infection of household members. So if people were taking it preventatively in the house because somebody else had a flu that was probably diagnosed by the PCR that doesn't really diagnose anything, I have to keep saying that so that you retain the truth, because you get layered with this scientific, hoo-ha, and they've got you running in different directions. Picture 5, drugs rushed. Here's an article from someone else who's got the experience I do in drug development and pharma. Drug development expert sounds the alarm over rushed to market COVID vaccines. Now, I want you to remember the stages, and let's bring that picture up again. The phases of pharmaceutical drug development. Preclinical is animals and petri dishes. That's important to get your beginning, especially on a novel drug. This sabizabulin is a novel, brand new entity. Never been used in before it's tested preclinically in any living thing. So if it's brand new, its mechanisms are still should be proven, established, compiled evidence. But now that it's been stopped early, and I want to get back to the Independent Data Monitoring Committee. Do you know who those committees are? Each company forms their own committee. So the FDA is not overseeing this. This tells us that each company is forming this sham committee. Oh, we have an independent data monitoring committee, and they've made a recommendation, a strong recommendation, because it's so successful. Well, how do you know that? And I'm not trying to be cute, but let me use an analogy. If you're baking a cake and you need 30 minutes to bake the cake, and 15 minutes into the baking, you look through the glass of the oven and you see the top is starting to brown a little bit. The liquid cake is starting to firm up, right? It's definitely going to be a great baked cake. But you turn the oven off because it's going to be a great cake. I can see it. It's going to be successful. You don't have a cake yet. I know it's simplistic, but I'm trying to impress upon your edification that this is what's happening. It wasn't just the shots. This is now a pattern. I predicted it. Why not? It's making them a ton of money. Hey, if I could save 300 or 400 million and just spend, 50 or 100 million and, knock this out in a few months instead of 6 months. And these trials, by the way, that means patient in, going through all the milestones, being measured, tested each week or so, according to the protocol. And then the data lock at the end. You don't get all your patients in at once, like the Pfizer FOIA dump. They want people to believe they got 4,000 people in all at once. No. Right? It can take 2 or 3, maybe 5 years to get your study, if you have a minimum number of, say, 5,000 patients across multi-center trials. Those patients going in, it's like first in, first out. The old accounting principle. Those patients have to go through their process. It takes a long time, but they're their own independent data monitoring. Oh, yeah, let's get it to market. That's all it is. And they are discussing with BARDA. It's all the government. It's all the DOD. BARDA, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority of the U.S. government, and other government agencies, was the quote, to secure an advanced purchase agreement. Oh yeah, we're paying for our own injury and damage and demise. You got to wake up, everybody. You got to start ringing the bell. Got to start pounding on the door. Very dangerous right now. Look, a lot of things are dangerous. I'm not a financial expert, but I am getting more and more nervous watching my lifelong savings in danger. We've got a trumped up war. We've got inflation. They're not even admitting it. It's probably 3 or 4 times that. And we're $30 trillion in debt. It's looking like 2008 all over again. Millions of Americans watch their retirement savings disappear, while those who invested in physical gold and silver were protected. And if you've got at least $50,000 or more in your IRA, 401, or your general savings, you could be at that same level of risk again. But right now, thousands of Americans are using an IRS loophole to add physical gold and silver to their retirement plans. I want you to call 855-791-2619 to get a free gold IRA kit and learn how thousands of Americans are protecting their retirement savings with gold and silver. You could actually get $10,000 or more in free silver to do it. Goldco is a great company. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of incredible customer reviews. and they've helped place nearly $1 billion in precious metals. We could be looking at something far worse as a recession moves in, something far worse than 2008. So please don't wait. Call Goldco today. Call 855-791-2619. That's 855-791-2619. Don't go away. When I come back, I'm going to give you an update on this mystery hepatitis that's not just hitting children, it's hitting adults, and it is connected to an adenovirus. How are people getting it? The mystery continues.